Kana, so very much. My voice is a little better today than it was yesterday, but we've been on this journey for a very long time. And I'm really proud of all of the national co-chairs. We got Mayor Carmen Cruz from San Juan, Puerto Rico, who's just a force of nature in her own right. And we have Ben Cohen, one of the founders of Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream, who the senator has affectionately said will be the minister of ice cream.
There's one position that's settled.
That position is settled. And really what I love about Congressman Ro Khanna is his boldness. You know, he's from California, and he's in an area that he could have easily said, I'm going to run away from Senator Bernard Sanders, but his integrity is intact. And although we've had many... We have certainly had many people join this campaign along the way, and that's a beautiful thing because this is what this is about. Our movement is about picking up people along the way, but you cannot forget the people who were there when it was hard. When, as he said about me, I go to places when the cameras are not on. Certainly I'm very well known for opening for the senator and being the person to introduce him, but we on the co-chair committee do so much more. And so there are lots of things that happen in the background that people will never ever know, that is not glamorous. It is the grit of the work that is necessary to push this campaign forward. And I could not do all of these great things without such an incredible co-chair team. So all of the co-chairs who came along with the senator before it was easy, before he was the front runner, I give them lots of credit, and especially my sister and my brother who are occupy an elected place right now. They're actively active in the electoral process in terms of holding the seat right now. They're not former. You know, we all get to hold our last elected title, and that is a beautiful thing. I always say first name Senator, last name Turner. And I roll that way, you know, as we reflect on this leap year, this being the last day of Black History Month. I often tell people when they ask me, because it's easy for Black women to be marginalized and forgotten about, and even when we do occupy leadership roles, people like to minimize them. The reason why I make sure that people give me my respect is I remember the stories that my grandparents told me, that even when they were grown, they were called little boy, little girl. I remember the legacy of my ancestors who could not, many of them, could not even dare to dream to have positioning in the same way that I do. And it is because literally of their blood, their sweat, and their tears that I stand here today as somebody that is blessed enough to be in partnership with Senator Bernard Sanders and my colleagues on the co-chair team who helped to lead this campaign, and also our campaign manager and everybody else that works on this campaign. So I do take all of this. This is a ministry for me. I asked, one reporter said to me that she said, Senator Turner, you really believe this with all your heart, soul, and mind, and I do. This is not just a job for me. This is my calling. This is where I'm supposed to be for a time such as this. Congressman Ro Khanna is where he should be for a time such as this. And certainly Senator Bernard Sanders is doing what he was destined to do, which is the work. From the beginning in terms of people like Congressman Khanna. I know how heavy South Carolina is. It has always been the hardest early state. It continues to be the hardest early state. But just as we won the popular vote in Iowa, we won the popular vote in New Hampshire, maybe they dropped the mic in Nevada. No doubt moment in Nevada, you know, and it really, to all of the pundits and the naysayers, really showed very clearly that Senator Bernard Sanders and our movement is a multicultural, multi-gendered, multi-generational, multi-ethnic, multi-racial, multi-fill-in-the-blank coalition of conscious-minded people on the move. And even though they, being the mainstream media and other neoliberals and other people who want to see this campaign fail, they even tried to discredit our white sisters and brothers in Iowa and New Hampshire. I just happen to believe that we are all in this together, and we need all folks from all walks of life. So I'm not going to discount the fact that Iowa is demographically very white, that New Hampshire demographically is very white. They even tried to discount the people of color who lived in those states, as if they want something different from Black folks who live in other parts of this country. The last time I checked, most people that we have come encounter with, what they want is to be able to live a good life. If they have children, they want to know that their children can live better lives than they have lived. They want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to live their measure of the American dream. The last time I checked, that has no color or creed. So we cannot allow, as Senator Sanders continues to remind us, for people to try to divide us. And it's not just President Donald J. Trump who's trying to divide us. There are other people within the elites in this country who are trying to divide us. But we will continue to move and to fight and to push Senator Bernard Sanders forward. He is our conduit for what is just, for what is right, and for what is good. And the beautiful thing about him is that he understands that he cannot do this alone, that this is not about me, this is about all of us. And I don't know if they told you when you came in here, but once you join the political revolution of the 21st century, baby, you can't get out. Senator is going to need us the most is when he is the 46th president of the United States. That's what he's going to need us the most. And he does understand that, and that's why he even calls himself the organizer in chief. Because he does understand that he's going to need the people to move the Congress. He's going to need the people to move Wall Street, the pharmaceutical industry, all of the above. He's going to need the people. And let me, in closing, talk a little bit about democratic socialism. They're going to smear. There was somebody on a show this morning on MSNBC that was allowed to call Senator Sanders a communist. Now, we know that that is a lie. We got babies in here, because I would say something else about it, but just imagine what I would say. And you know what? McCarthyism was a bad thing in the 1950s, and the remix of McCarthyism is a damn bad thing in the 21st century. On these shows, and this is not about picking a candidate because they're supposed to be neutral when they're up there, but we don't need them to start checking some folks when they go too far. That is what we don't need them to do. And so to be able to try to smear the senator like that in this movement, we know exactly what they're doing. And what makes it so much worse than the 1950s is the advent of social media. That when lies travel, you know, there's a saying about when the lie travel, it might take 2 lifetimes for truth to catch up. Something like that. I'd have made that up. But you know, it takes a long time. And especially with social media, where you have so many people who just believe if a checkmark person said it, therefore it must be true. And so we cannot allow that to happen. Democratic socialism just simply means government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's all. It is the same democratic socialism that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about. It is the same democratic socialism, and Congressman Connor was hitting on this. You know, when FDR was pushing for Social Security, if you go back in time and read the history or look at the buttons that were out at that time, they had buttons out saying, we don't need socialism. They were bumping up against him for Social Security. That is the same thing we're fighting right now when we talk about Medicare for all and college for all and cancer student debt. It's the same thing that LBJ had to endure when he was pushing for Medicare, Medicaid, all of those things. Democratic socialism is all around us. It's the roads we ride on, the water that comes out of pipes. Hopefully it's clean. We got work to do on that. Right? It's when you dial 911. It is, in the words of Senator Sanders, what we have right now in the body politic, where the wealthiest folks get a certain level of socialism and everybody else got to fend for themselves. Last day, this election day, that you are willing to go out and knock on doors and help to make some crooked paths straight. We stand in front of Senator Bernie Sanders, we stand beside him, and we stand behind him. That is what this movement really is all about. So Congressman Ro Khanna and I are here today on behalf of Senator Sanders to say thank you to you. When history is written, there are going to be some names mentioned, and there are going to be some names left out. But we want you to know today that even if nobody else ever speaks your name, even if nobody else ever remembers that you knocked on doors, even on the very last day, on election day, in the great state of South Carolina, that we see you and we recognize you. We really are at a moment of transcendence, and this really is about life and death. If people can't afford their prescription drugs, that's life or death. If people cannot, or they're too afraid to go to a hospital because either they're underinsured or uninsured, or even if they have insurance, their co-pays, deductibles, and premiums cost too much. So they pick and choose what they're going to do. This is really about life and death, and we're never going to get another chance in any of our lifetimes that are quite like this. Even the youngest person in this room, there will never, ever, ever quite be somebody who is so solidly consistent as Senator Bernie Sanders. This is it. And only all that we love is on the line. That's it. That's all. Nothing too big. Just that. Just the planning. That's all. Just that. Just people being able to live a good life. That's all. Just that. And so what you are doing, you could have been in your house complaining about what's happening in our life in this country and eating bonbons or eating Ben & Jerry's ice cream. But instead, you are taking it to the streets, baby. Yeah! This afternoon come from two women who I think are very bold and strong, who I love. Or let me make it three women. One is Mother Jones, who stood up for coal miners, and she stood up for children and their rights to push back against a country that put children in coal mines for profit. She said, "I will pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living." Yeah, that is the moment we are in. Is Congresswoman Barbara Jordan from the great state of Texas, who said these words. What the people want is very simple. They want an America as good as its promise. Yeah. That is what Medicare for All is. That is what canceling student debt is. That is what is to reform a legal system that is racially biased, just racist and unjust. That is what that is. It is hella racist. That's what that's about. Creating America as good as its promise. Recognizing that we as human beings have destroyed Mother Earth and we must reverse this process. And in order to do it, it's not just a proposition for the United States of America, it is a proposition for the world. And what a beautiful thing it will be to have a president in office who understands that and who can bring the world leaders together to do a new thing for planet Earth. That is about making life as good as his promise. And then lastly, in the words of my grandmother, who in the African American tradition had what we call mother wit. She only had a 3rd grade education. She could not read or write, but she could certainly count her money. Hey. And she kept her money in the Southern Ladies Bank and Trust with a handkerchief. Her 3 bones are what carry me and motivate me, and I want to say those words to you. The wishbone, the jawbone, and the backbone. The wishbone is for hoping and praying because hope is the motivator, but the dream is the driver. The jawbone gives us courage to lift our voices, to speak truth to power. Yeah. You see, titles are good, but purpose is better. Yeah. The most important bone of them all, she said, is the supercalifragilisticexpialidocious bone, and that is the backbone, because the backbone will give us the courage to stand. You cannot have a testimony without a test. And we are being tested to determine whether we got courage enough, conviction enough, fight enough to do what is necessary in our time to not only make crooked paths straight, but to stand up for what is just, what is right, and what is good. So we are going to take my grandma's 3 bones, not just in the great state of South Carolina, but baby, we going into Super Tuesday like a lion. The world. And when we make our senator, who I often say is 78, but we're going to make him 46. We're going to make him 46. When he becomes the 46th president of the United States of America, we will embark on transformational change in the United States of America.